Shame.
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 Shame. Shame. Shame. Shame. Hey guys, we're Michael and Christina, and we're here to help you see how simple your health can really be.
And this week, we are talking about food shame.
Food shame. 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 But not in the context of Game of Thrones. We're talking about food shame, which people feel even though they think they don't feel it.
We all do.
We all feel it.
Been there.
And I thought for a while that I didn't feel food shame because I was like, oh, I don't feel shameful about what I eat. But deep down, I did. And I didn't realize it until I really tapped into it. And I actually shared a story earlier this week when we were in Singapore about a month ago. The story was basically around how I was eating these cookies or these biscuits or something like that because I was really hungry and there was nothing else around. And I knew they weren't good for me. I looked at the label, they were full of sugar and vegetable fats and just stuff that was just not going to serve me, but I was hungry and I was like, I want to have some. And Christina was somewhere in the room or around, and I opened the package and started to eat it, and I was like thinking about it, I was like, oh, she's probably judging me right now because I'm a health coach and I shouldn't be eating this and I know better, and I basically was feeling ashamed and guilty for doing it. Meanwhile, she probably didn't really care, which
Nope.
There you go, she just didn't care. So this was my own thoughts, my own feelings that I was projecting towards her, she's judging me and she's thinking about how I'm just not being a good health coach right now. But really it was just my own mind, my own toxic thoughts that were just not serving me, and I was just feeling ashamed and guilty for eating some biscuits, which in the grand scheme of things, we're not gonna do a huge disservice to my body, my physical body, but the thoughts and the negative emotions and feelings that I was having about eating it was probably more detrimental to my mental health.
And for me, it doesn't usually show up with sweets. For me, it's usually the chips. I'll start, and I've always heard the get a bowl and just put a couple bowls, but I'm like, no,
no one does that.
No, I'll just get the whole bag. And you're like, I'll just have a couple, and then a couple turns into half the bag, and then the whole bag is done, and I'm like, oh, damn. And it's funny, one thing that I've realized is that usually the shame comes when I'm like, oh God, what's Mike gonna think? And it sounds like for you as well, it's like I get down on myself for having eaten a whole damn bag, but I'm like, oh, what if Mike comes home and he's like, where's the bag of chips, babe? I'm like, oh, I ate it all.
We think it's someone else's perception of us, but really it's our own perception of ourselves. So that bug's really loud, but that's okay. He usually quiets down eventually.
In an hour.
In maybe a couple minutes. So we're probably relatively clear to talk. We can just talk a lot closer to the microphone.
Hello.
Maybe that'll work. Shh. Ooh, that worked.
It's Ubud. Any woo-woo works.
It's like magic. So so how often do people actually eat unhealthily when they're by themselves or when they're alone? All the time probably, because there's no one around for them to feel or so they think they feel judged by or shamed by. Instead, those feelings still typically come up because sometimes when I'm eating alone, I'm thinking oh, no one's around, so I'm not gonna have to have these feelings, but they're still there because of the fact that you're eating alone. You think that other people are judging you. But really, if you just ate them whenever the hell you wanted, then there would be no there would be no shame or no guilt around the food itself, right? So if you catch yourself eating alone, which sometimes I do, and I'm sure you do as well, and you're eating something that's not super healthy for you, you're feeling safe in your little bubble of no one being around, and it's oh, okay, I'm fine here.
And sometimes I think when you're alone, you kind of tap into the emotions, and whether you're sad or frustrated with work or whatever, you're just oh man, I'm just gonna comfort myself with a bowl of ice cream, and the next thing you know, you ate the whole tub of ice cream. So it's just being aware of that and not getting down on yourself, because I think that's more detrimental in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. The mental health aspect is just more toxic than the actual food itself. I think that's a big lesson there.
Yeah, so for us, cutting out sugar for a really long time, we're still dealing with that feeling of oh God, is this bad that we're eating this? I do.
I mean, it's hard to get rid of it. Even for myself, last month or whatever, when I had those feelings, they come up randomly, and it's almost like a deep conditioned subconscious programming that we have the shame around, which probably came from magazines and this you know, need to be perceived like healthy and fit and sexy and all that stuff. And it's like, if we don't have those things, if we don't look that way, if we don't, you know, portray ourselves that way, then we should be ashamed of ourselves.
So we want to hear about your food shame stories, because everyone's got them.
Everyone's got them, for sure.
Everyone's got them.
And if you feel like you don't have them, just like tap into it a little bit. And next time you catch yourself eating either alone or you're eating something that you know you probably shouldn't be eating a lot of, think about how you feel. Think about how you feel, and then tune into that, and then share it with us. Be curious to know.
So thanks so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next week.
Nailed it.